I was halfway to the elevator when a rough hand caught my arm. A stranger leaned in close and whispered, his voice shaking with urgency, "Sir, don't go up there. Your daughter-in-law has been planning this for months." My blood turned to ice. And yet, when I finally stepped into the meeting room, she collapsed, the instant her eyes met mine. Follow this story until the end and comment the city you're watching from, so I know how far the truth has traveled. I never thought an ordinary Thursday afternoon could shatter the foundation of my family. The call from Peterson. Walsh and Associates had come at exactly 1000 a.m. Mr. Peterson, we're ready to finalize your wife's estate settlement. Can you be here at 330? The attorney's tone was crisp, rehearsed, utterly routine. I said yes without hesitation. 3 months of delays had worn me down. Martha had been gone for 92 days. Yet I still counted every single one. 47 years of marriage doesn't end with a funeral. The silence of our home echoed no coffee brewing, no evening commentary, no gentle corrections when I misplaced my glasses. At 75, I thought I understood grief, but losing Martha carved a loneliness I hadn't known existed. The drive downtown dragged through endless construction. Too much time to think. Too much time to remember how carefully Martha and I had reviewed our wills. Everything was simple. The house, our savings, the small investment portfolio. It was all to remain mine until I was gone. Only then would David and his family inherit. When I pulled into the parking garage, the concrete walls felt colder than a tomb. My hands clung to the steering wheel longer than necessary before I forced myself out. Leather portfolio tucked under my arm. One steadying breath. Then toward the elevators. That's when I heard it. "Excuse me." "Sir, please wait." A man stepped from behind a pillar. 50s. Graying hair. Denim jacket too thin for the season. Not threatening, just worn. His eyes burned with urgency. "You're John Peterson." Martha's husband. The sound of her name on his lips made my pulse quicken. "I don't know who you are, but leave me alone," I said, fumbling for my phone. He raised both hands. "Sir, I know how this looks. I worked upstairs at Peterson, Walsh and Associates, until 3 weeks ago. Before they fired me, I overheard conversations about your wife's estate, about your daughter-in-law, Amanda." The name slammed into me like a blow. "She's been planning to challenge Martha's will." He pressed on. "She's telling people you're not capable of managing the estate. She already has medical records and statements, claims that you're confused, showing signs of dementia." The words hollowed me. I leaned against my car for balance. My mind screamed, "Impossible. I've never been diagnosed with anything." But the stranger's eyes said otherwise. "My mind is perfectly clear. I know. See ya. That's why I've been waiting here, hoping to catch you before the meeting." She wasn't expecting you to show up today. She told Mr. Walsh you probably wouldn't even remember the appointment. Angefla, cutting through my shock. How dare she question my mental capacity? The man nodded sympathetically. "There's more. See ya. She's been forging documents, making it look like your wife wanted to change her will in her final days. She has fake medical reports saying Martha was concerned about your ability to handle finances." I felt like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. None of this made sense. Martha had never expressed concerns about my financial management. If anything, I had handled most of our money matters throughout our marriage. With her full trust and support. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, studying his weathered face for any sign of deception. "Because your wife was always kind to me when she came to the office, sir, and because what they're doing isn't right. I may not have much left, but I still have my conscience." I looked at this stranger who was risking whatever little stability he had to warn me. What's your name, Frank Rodriguez? Sia. I was a paralegal at Peterson Walsh and Associates for 15 years, before they decided I knew too much about their side operations. Side operations, I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Frank glanced around the parking garage again, making sure we were still alone. They've been helping certain wealthy clients manipulate estate documents for years, taking huge fees for making inconvenient family members disappear from inheritance papers. Your daughter-in-law has been paying them very well. The elevator dinged in the distance, and Frank stepped back into the shadows. Sir, you need to be extremely careful up there. They're expecting you to just sign papers without reading them thoroughly. Don't let them pressure you into anything. Before I could ask more questions, he had melted back between the parked cars, leaving me standing there with my mind reeling. Part of me wanted to dismiss his words as the ravings of a desperate man, but something in my gut told me he was telling the truth. I thought about Amanda, my daughter-in-law of 7 years. She had always been sweet to my face, but I had noticed subtle changes over the past year. The way she would exchange glances with David when I spoke, how she seemed to steer conversations away from me during family dinners, the barely concealed impatience when I told stories about Martha and our life together. With shaking hands, I pressed the elevator button. As the doors closed, I caught a glimpse of Frank, watching me from behind a concrete pillar, his expression filled with genuine concern. The ride to the 12th floor felt like an eternity. When the doors opened, I stepped into the reception area of Peterson, Walsh and Associates. The polished marble floors and expensive oil paintings that once impressed me now seemed ominous, like a beautiful trap designed to lure unsuspecting victims. Mr. Peterson, the receptionist, said with a practiced smile, "They're waiting for you in conference room B." As I walked down the hallway, my footsteps echoing on the polished floor, I noticed how quiet everything seemed. Most office doors were closed and I could hear muffled conversation behind them. I paused outside conference room B, my hand on the brass handle. Through the frosted glass, I could see several figures seated around a large table. I recognized one silhouette immediately, Amanda's petite frame and distinctive blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door. The room was exactly as intimidating as I had expected. 3 men in expensive suits sat on one side of the mahogany table, with Amanda seated across from them. She looked up as I entered, and for just a moment I saw something flash across her face. Surprise. Fear. It vanished so quickly I almost thought I had imagined it. Then she smiled. That same sweet smile she had been giving me for 7 years. "Oh, John, I wasn't sure you were coming today," she said. "Ted," and the way she said it confirmed everything Frank had told me. "Hello, Amanda," I replied, keeping my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "Of course I'm here. This is about Martha's estate." The lead attorney, a silver-haired man with cold gray eyes, gestured to an empty chair. "Mr. Peterson, please have a seat. We have several documents that require your signature today." As I sat down, I noticed Amanda fidgeting with her wedding ring, twisting it around her finger repeatedly. She wouldn't meet my eyes directly, instead focusing on a stack of papers in front of her. "Before we begin," I said, placing my portfolio firmly on the table, "I'd like to understand exactly what we're discussing today. Martha and I reviewed her will many times over the years. I'm familiar with her wishes." The attorney exchanged a quick glance with his colleagues. "Mr. Peterson, there have been some recent developments. Your wife made certain amendments to her will in her final weeks, expressing concerns about your ability to manage the estate independently." "Stop," I interrupted, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. "What kind of concerns?" Amanda finally looked directly at me, her blue eyes wide, with what appeared to be genuine worry. John, Martha was concerned about your health. She mentioned several incidents where you seemed confused, forgetful. She wanted to make sure the estate was handled properly. The words felt like a physical slap. Incidents. What incidents? One of the other attorneys slid a manila folder across the polished table. Mr. Peterson, we have documentation of several occasions where family members observed concerning behavior, memory lapses, confusion about dates and financial matters, difficulty managing household responsibilities. I opened the folder with trembling hands. Inside were what appeared to be medical reports, written statements, and even photographs. My breath caught as I recognized Amanda's handwriting on one of the statements dated just 2 months ago. John became extremely agitated when asked about paying bills. I read aloud. He couldn't remember what checks he had written or how much money he had in his accounts. When David tried to help him organize his finances, John accused him of trying to control his money. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold the paper. This is completely false. I have never accused David of trying to control anything. I manage my own finances perfectly well. John, Amanda's voice was soft, almost pitying. You did say those things. We were all very worried about you. That's why Martha decided she needed to make new arrangements. I stared at this woman I had welcomed into my family, who had sat at my dinner table countless times, who had cried at Martha's funeral and hugged me afterward. The person looking back at me now was a complete stranger. What arrangements, I managed to ask. The lead attorney cleared his throat. Your wife amended her will to establish a trust. The estate would be managed by trustees. In this case, your son David and his wife, Amanda, with provisions for your care and living expenses. The room started spinning. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. You're telling me Martha didn't trust me to handle my own money. It wasn't about trust. John, Amanda said quickly. It was about protection. Martha loved you so much. She just wanted to make sure you were taken care of properly. I closed my eyes, trying to process what was happening. When I opened them again, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. In the corner of the conference room sat a small digital recording device, its red light blinking steadily. Are you recording this meeting? I asked. The attorneys looked uncomfortable. It's standard practice for estate settlements, the lead attorney said. Standard practice to record a grieving widower without his consent before anyone could answer. There was a soft knock on the door. A secretary peered in nervously. Mr. Walsh, there's someone here to see you. He says it's urgent. The lead attorney frowned. We're in the middle of an important meeting. See ya. He says his name is Frank Rodriguez, and he has information about this case. I watched as all the color drained from Amanda's face. She looked like she might be sick. I don't know anyone by that name. Walsh said quickly, tell him we're busy. Actually, I said, standing up slowly, I'd like to hear what Mr. Rodriguez has to say. John, I don't think that's necessary, Amanda said, her voice higher than usual. We should just focus on getting through these documents. But it was too late. Frank appeared in the doorway, looking cleaner than he had in the parking garage, but still obviously out of place in the expensive law office. Mr. Peterson, he said, nodding at me respectfully. I apologize for interrupting, but I have something you need to see. Walsh stood up abruptly. Sir, you're trespassing. I'm calling security. Go ahead, Frank said calmly. But first, Mr. Peterson should know that I have copies of the original documents, the real ones from before they were altered. The room went dead silent. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Frank reached into a worn messenger bag and pulled out a manila folder. I made copies before they fired me. Your wife's original will, dated 8 months ago. and the real medical reports from her doctor, not the fabricated ones. They created... Amanda suddenly stood up, swaying slightly. "I don't feel well," she mumbled. "Sit down, Amanda," I said, my voice harder than I'd ever heard it. "You're going to want to hear this." Frank opened his folder and pulled out several documents. "Mr. Peterson, your wife never changed her will. These people," he gestured toward the attorneys, "I have been working with your daughter-in-law to create false documents. They forged Martha's signature and fabricated medical reports to make it look like she questioned your mental capacity." "That's preposterous," Walsh sputtered. "This man is clearly disturbed. We have witnesses to Mrs. Peterson's concerns about her husband's condition." "You mean the witnesses your firm paid?" Frank asked calmly. "I have the receipts for those payments to Amanda." Made a small whimpering sound and suddenly collapsed back into her chair, her face white as paper. For a moment I thought she had fainted, but her eyes were still open, darting frantically around the room like a trapped animal. "Why?" I asked her, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why would you do this to me?" Amanda's mouth opened and closed several times before any words came out. "David and I have debts. John, serious debts. The house, his consulting business. Everything is mortgaged beyond our means. We needed you, needed to steal from me. I finished for her." Frank placed Martha's original will in front of me. "Mr. Peterson, this is your wife's real will, signed and witnessed properly 6 months before her death. Everything she owned comes to you exactly as you believed." I looked down at Martha's familiar signature, the same flowing script I had seen her write thousands of times over our 47 years of marriage. Seeing it there real and unchanged brought tears to my eyes. "How long have you been planning this?" I asked Amanda. She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks in dark streaks. "It wasn't supposed to hurt you. We were going to make sure you were comfortable. The trust would have provided for everything you needed while you controlled every penny," I said. "Frank, what exactly were they planning?" Frank pulled out another document. "The trust they designed would have paid you $45,000 annually for living expenses, while the remainder of the estate, approximately 400,000 users, would be used to pay off their debts and provide them with a management fee of $25,000 per year." The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. This wasn't just about money. This was about my son and his wife systematically planning to control every aspect of my remaining years. "Does David know?" I asked Amanda. "Is my son part of this?" She hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything I needed to know. "He knows about the debts," she said finally, "and he knows we were hoping the inheritance would solve our problems. But he doesn't know about the fake documents or the lies about your mental state. He thinks Martha really did change her will because she was worried about you." Walsh was frantically shuffling papers, probably trying to hide evidence. "Mr. Peterson, I think there's been a serious misunderstanding. Perhaps we should reschedule this meeting when everyone has had time to know," I said firmly. "We're going to finish this right now." I looked around the room at these people who had tried to rob me of more than just money. They had tried to steal Martha's final gift to me. Not just her financial security, but her trust. Her faith in my ability to live independently and make my own decisions. But I also looked at Frank, this man who had nothing to gain and everything to lose by speaking up for me. A man who had risked whatever little stability he had left to make sure I knew the truth. "What happens now?" I asked Frank. Frank looked at the attorneys with disgust. "Now we call the police." As he reached for his phone, Amanda let out a small sob and slumped forward, finally fainting. For real this time. But I felt no sympathy for her. The woman who had just collapsed wasn't the daughter-in-law. I knew she was a stranger who had been wearing Amanda's face for 7 years. manipulating my family, while planning my financial destruction, while she tried one last desperate move. Mr. Peterson, even if there have been some irregularities in the documentation, your son and daughter-in-law are still facing serious financial difficulties. Perhaps we could work out some arrangement. The only arrangement, I said, standing up and gathering Martha's real will be between Amanda, you, and the police. Frank was already dialing 911. Within minutes, I could hear sirens in the distance. As we waited, I couldn't help but think about how close I had come to signing those papers. If Frank hadn't risked everything to warn me, I would have walked into this meeting completely unprepared. I would have signed away my independence, believing that my beloved Martha had lost faith in me in her final days. The thought was so horrific that I had to sit down again, my legs suddenly too weak to support me. But then I looked at Frank again, this unlikely guardian who had saved me from a fate worse than losing my inheritance. He had given me back something infinitely more precious. The truth about Martha's unwavering faith in me. The police arrived within 15 minutes. But those 15 minutes felt like hours. Amanda had regained consciousness and sat slumped in her chair, no longer bothering to maintain her innocent facade. This sweet, caring daughter-in-law I thought I knew had vanished, completely replaced by someone cold and calculating. Detective Williams was a man about my age, with graying hair and sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. He listened patiently as Frank explained what he knew, examining the documents with calm professionalism. Mr. Peterson, he said after reviewing everything, I'm going to need you to tell me about your relationship with your daughter-in-law. Start from the beginning. I found myself thinking back to 7 years ago, when David first brought Amanda home to meet us. She had been 23 then, working as a dental assistant, seemingly sweet and genuinely in love with my son. Martha and I had welcomed her with open arms. She was perfect. He told Detective Williams to perfect. I realize now, she always said exactly what Martha and I wanted to hear, always agreed with everything we said. I thought she was just trying to fit in with the family. As I spoke, memories started shifting in my mind, like puzzle pieces rearranging themselves into a clearer picture. Things that had seemed innocent at the time now took on a darker meaning. About 2 years ago, she started making little comments. I continued. Nothing obvious, just small suggestions that maybe I was getting forgetful. She'd ask if I remembered conversations we'd supposedly had, events that I was certain had never happened. Amanda looked up at me. Then, her eyes red and swollen. John, I was genuinely concerned about, I cut her off, surprising myself with the strength in my voice. You were planting seeds, making me question my own memory. Detective Williams turned to Frank. Mr. Rodriguez, can you tell me more about what you witnessed at the law firm? Frank pulled out his small notebook, his hands remarkably steady considering everything he had risked about 8 months ago. Mrs. Amanda Peterson started coming to the office regularly. At first, Mr. Walsh told us she was just asking about estate planning for her husband's family. He flipped through his notebook. But then the meetings became more secretive. I started paying attention because something felt wrong. She would bring documents that she claimed were from doctors, statements from family, friends, even photographs that were supposed to show Mr. Peterson in confused or disoriented states. What kind of photographs? Detective Williams asked. Amanda shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Frank looked at her with disgust before answering. Pictures of Mr. Peterson at the grocery store, at the bank, at family gatherings. But they were taken from far away, and the captions were lies. One photo showed Mr. Peterson at a checkout counter, and Amanda's statement claimed he had been confused about money and unable to complete his purchase. But I could see in the photo that Mr. Peterson was simply chatting with the cashier while his groceries were being bagged. My hands clenched into fists. The violation felt almost physical. You were following me, taking pictures of me living my normal life. Amanda's voice was barely a whisper. I needed documentation. The lawyers said they needed evidence. Evidence of what? Of me? Grocery shopping. Of me talking to people. Detective Williams made notes as she spoke. Mr. Peterson said, were you aware of any financial difficulties your son and daughter-in-law might have been experiencing? I shook my head. David always seemed to be doing well. He has his own consulting business. They live in a beautiful house in Westfield. They take expensive vacations every year, all funded by debt, Amanda said suddenly, her voice bitter. The house has 2 mortgages. The business is barely breaking even. The vacations went on credit cards. We owe over $280. Ling, ling, ling. The number hit me like a punch to the stomach. How is that possible? David's business started failing 3 years ago. Amanda continued, tears streaming down her face again. He was too proud to tell you and Martha. He kept borrowing money, thinking he could turn it around. When Martha got sick, we realized the inheritance might be our only way out. I stared at her, trying to process this information. My son's struggling financially for 3 years, and he hadn't said a word to us. Martha would have helped in an instant if she had known. So instead of asking for help, you decided to steal from me. I said it wasn't stealing. Amanda protested weakly. You would have been taken care of. The trust would have covered all your expenses. Frank snorted. A trust that would have paid him $45. 000 a year. While the rest of the estate went to cover your debts. I saw the calculations. Mr. Peterson, they were planning to use your wife's money to pay off their credit cards and mortgages, while keeping you on what amounted to an allowance. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. This wasn't just about money. This was about my son and his wife systematically planning to control every aspect of my remaining years. Does David know? I asked Amanda. Is he part of this conspiracy? She hesitated again. And that hesitation was more revealing than any words could be. He knows about the debts, she said finally. And he knows we were hoping the inheritance would solve our problems. But he doesn't know about the fake documents or the lies about your mental state. He thinks Martha really did change her will because she was concerned about you. Detective Williams looked up from his notes. So your husband believes his father genuinely thought his mother was becoming incompetent. Amanda nodded miserably. I've been telling him stories for months. Little incidents that supposedly happened when he wasn't around. I made him believe that Martha was worried about John's memory, his decision-making abilities. The room felt like it was spinning. Not only had Amanda been lying to me, she had been poisoning my relationship with my own son, making him believe his mother had lost faith in me. What incidents? I demanded. Amanda looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. I told him you forgot to turn off the stove and nearly started a fire, that you got lost driving to the grocery store, that you accused the mailman of stealing your mail, that you hid money around the house and then forgot where you put it. Each lie felt like a physical blow. None of that ever happened. I know, she whispered. Detective Williams closed his notebook. Mr. Peterson, I'm going to need you to come to the station to give a formal statement. And I'll need copies of all these documents. He looked at the attorneys who had been sitting silently through the entire conversation. Gentlemen will be investigating your involvement in this matter as well. Walsh finally spoke up. Detective, we were acting on information provided to us by our client. If that information was falsified, we're as much victims here as Mr. Peterson. Frank laughed bitterly. Victims. You charged them $75. 000 to forge documents and fabricate evidence. I have copies of your invoices. The lead attorney's face went white. That's not... We don't save it, Detective Williams said. You can explain it all downtown. As the police began gathering evidence and taking statements, I found myself looking at Amanda one more time. This woman who had shared holidays with us, who had hugged me and called me dad, who had sat beside Martha's hospital bed during her final days. Was any of it real? I asked her. The last 7 years. The family dinners. The conversations we had. Was any of it real? Amanda looked up at me with genuine tears in her eyes. At first, yes. When I met David when we got married, I really did care about you and Martha. But when the money problems started getting worse, when we realized how much the estate was worth, she didn't finish the sentence. But she didn't need to. I understood, somewhere along the way. Her love for my son had been corrupted by desperation and greed. As Detective Williams prepared to escort everyone out, I realized something that chilled me to the bone. If Frank hadn't warned me, if he hadn't risked everything to tell me the truth, I would have walked into this meeting completely unprepared. I would have signed those papers believing my beloved Martha had lost faith in me. In her final weeks, the thought was so horrific that I had to sit down again, my legs suddenly too weak to support me. 3 days after the police station, I sat in my kitchen staring at my phone. David had called 23 times since Detective Williams had contacted him. 23 calls. I hadn't answered because I wasn't ready to hear his voice. I wasn't ready to know how much of his wife's poison he had absorbed. Frank had come by twice, bringing me copies of documents and checking to make sure I was all right. This man, who lived in a rented room above a diner, cared more about my well-being than my own daughter-in-law had. The irony wasn't lost on me. The doorbell rang at exactly 2 to seizures, just as I had expected. Through the peephole, I could see David standing on my porch, his face haggard and his usually perfect hair disheveled. Next to him stood Amanda, looking smaller and more fragile than I had ever seen her. I opened the door, but didn't invite them in. "Dad," David said, his voice cracking on the single word. "We need to talk." I studied my son's face, searching for signs of the man I had raised. He looked exhausted, older than his 35 years. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his clothes looked like he had slept in them. "Do we?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "Please, Dad, let us come in. Let us explain." I stepped aside, but only because I needed to hear what he had to say. I needed to know how much he knew, how much he had participated in his wife's scheme. They sat on the couch Martha and I had picked out together 20 years ago. The same couch where we had welcomed Amanda into our family. When David first brought her home, the same couch where we had shared countless family moments that now felt tainted by lies. Detective Williams told me everything David said without preamble about the fake documents, the forged medical reports, the lies about Mom changing her will. He paused, his voice breaking, and I had no idea. "Dad, I swear to you, I had no idea Amanda was doing any of that." I remained standing, my arms crossed. "But you knew about the deaths." His face crumpled. "Yes, we're drowning. Dad, the business is failing. We owe money everywhere. And I was too ashamed to tell you and Mom. I kept thinking I could fix it, that I could turn things around before you ever had to know. So when Martha got sick, you started thinking about the inheritance." David flinched as if I had slapped him. "Not like that. Not the way you're making it sound." Then how Amanda spoke up for the first time since entering my house. "David, tell him the truth. All of it." I turned to look at her, if surprised. The woman sitting on my couch looked nothing like the confident manipulator I had seen at the law office. She looked broken, defeated. David ran his hands through his hair. "When Mom got hair diagnosis, when we knew she only had months left, I started panicking about what would happen to you after she was gone. You'd be all alone in this big house, managing everything by yourself. I'm 75. David, not 95. I know, but Amanda started pointing out little things. Times when you seemed confused or forgetful. She said Mom had mentioned being worried about you. You filled my anger flare. What little things? David looked uncomfortable, like when you forgot about our dinner plans last Christmas, or when you couldn't remember our new neighbor's name, or when you put the coffee in the refrigerator instead of the pantry. I stared at him in disbelief. David, you canceled dinner at the last minute because Amanda got food poisoning. Our neighbor's name is Jim Morrison, and I knew that perfectly well. And putting coffee in the refrigerator once, after working in the garage for 4 hours, doesn't make me senile. The confusion on his face was genuine. He looked from me to Amanda and back again. But Amanda said, Amanda lied. I said flatly about everything. Amanda was crying again, silent tears streaming down her face. I twisted things. She whispered. I took normal everyday moments and made them sound like symptoms of dementia. I made you see problems that weren't there. David looked like someone had pulled the ground out from under him. Why would you do that? Because I was desperate. Amanda said, because we were losing everything. And I thought if you believed your father needed help managing the estate, maybe you'd be more willing to let us handle things for him. Handle things, I repeated. You mean steal from me? No. Amanda protested weakly. We would have taken care of you. You would have had everything you needed under your control. I said $45. 000 a year, while you used Martha's money to pay off your credit cards and mortgages. David's head snapped up. What are you talking about? Ask your wife about the trust she had, the lawyer's draw-up. Ask her about how much of the estate was going to be used to pay your debts. While I lived on an allowance, I watched as understanding dawned on David's face. The horror. The realization of just how thoroughly he had been manipulated by his own wife. Amanda, he said, his voice barely audible. Tell me he's wrong. Amanda couldn't meet his eyes. The lawyer said it was the best way to protect everyone's interests. Everyone's interests. David exploded, jumping up from the couch. You were planning to steal my father's inheritance. We were drowning. Amanda screamed back, her composure finally cracking completely. Your business was failing. We owed money to everyone, and you were too proud to ask for help. I was trying to save us by destroying my father. The raw pain in David's voice cut through my anger. I could see him realizing not just what Amanda had done, but how she had used his love for me against both of us. How she had made him complicit in doubting his own father while believing he was protecting me. David, I said quietly, sit down. He sank back onto the couch, looking like a man who had just discovered his entire life was built on lies. I want you to understand something. I continued. Your mother never doubted me. Not once. Not ever. Her will was never changed. She never questioned my ability to manage our affairs. The woman you knew, the mother who raised you, that woman trusted me completely until the day she died. David broke down, then sobbing like he had when he was a little boy. I'm so sorry. Dad, I'm so sorry. I believed her. I should have known you better than that. You should have. I agreed, but she was very good at what she did. I looked at Amanda, who was staring at her hands in her lap. How long have you been planning this? When did you decide I was the enemy? You were never the enemy, she said. But when the debt started piling up, when we realized we might lose everything, I started thinking about the inheritance differently. Your wife's estate is worth over $900. Ling, ling, ling. John, that money could solve all our problems. That money was Martha's life's work. Money she saved so I could live comfortably after she was gone. You don't need $900. Ling, 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 Amanda said, a flash of her old resentment showing through. You live simply. You don't travel. You don't spend money on expensive things. That money would just sit in the bank while we lost our house. Our cars. Everything we've worked for. And there it was. The real Amanda. The woman who believed she deserved Martha's money more than I did because she would spend it while I would save it. The woman who had convinced herself that stealing from me was actually noble because I didn't need what my wife had left me. David looked at his wife like he was seeing her for the first time. Amanda, how could you think like that? How could you believe you had any right to Dad's inheritance? Because he doesn't need it. Amanda shouted. Because we do. Because you were too stubborn and proud to ask for help when we needed it. So instead of asking, you decided to take. I said the room fell silent, except for the sound of Amanda's crying and David's ragged breathing. Finally, David spoke. Dad, what happens now? I had been asking myself the same question for 3 days. What did happen now? My daughter-in-law had tried to steal my inheritance through an elaborate scheme involving forged documents and false medical reports. My son had been manipulated into doubting his own father's competence. The lawyers who were supposed to protect Martha's wishes had been willing to fabricate evidence for the right price. But underneath all of that was a deeper question. Could this family be saved? I looked at David at the genuine remorse and horror on his face. Then I looked at Amanda, still defiant, even in her defeat. That depends, I said finally, on what you're both willing to do to make this right. The silence in my living room stretched on for what felt like hours. David sat with his head in his hands, while Amanda stared at the floor. Her tears finally spent. I remained standing, waiting for one of them to speak. First, to show me who they really were. Beneath all the lies and desperation, it was David who broke the silence. What do you want us to do? Dad, I had spent 3 sleepless nights thinking about that question. What did I want, Justice? Revenge, or something harder to define? The restoration of trust that might be impossible to rebuild. I want the truth. I said all of it. Every lie. Every manipulation. Every moment when you chose to doubt me instead of trust me. David lifted his head, his eyes red and swollen. I'll tell you everything I know. Well, but I swear to you, I thought I was protecting you. Amanda convinced me that Mom was worried about your memory, that she wanted to make sure you were taken care of. How I asked. What exactly did she tell you? David glanced at his wife, who still wouldn't look up from the floor. She said Mom had mentioned it to her during one of her doctor visits. That Mom was concerned about leaving you alone with so much responsibility. I felt a chill run down my spine. Amanda was with Martha at her doctor visits. Sometimes, David said when I couldn't get away from work, she offered to drive Mom and help her keep track of her medication and appointments. I turned to look at Amanda. You used my wife's illness as an opportunity to manipulate my son. Finally, she looked up at me. Martha never said anything about being worried about you, but she was so weak during those last months, so dependent on everyone around her. It made it easy to suggest that maybe she should be thinking about what would happen to you after she was gone. Suggest to whom I demanded to David. I would mention things when we got home from the appointments. Little comments about how frail Martha was getting, how much she was depending on you for everything. I made it sound like Martha was concerned about burdening you. The betrayal cut deeper than I had thought possible. This woman had used my wife's final months, when she was at her most vulnerable, to plant seeds of doubt about me in our son's mind. What else? I asked. My voice steady, despite the rage building inside me. Amanda wiped her nose with a tissue. I started paying attention to everything you did. Every time you forgot where you put your keys. Every time you had to ask someone to repeat themselves. Every normal thing that happens to everyone, every day. I would mention it to David later. Make it sound concerning. And you believed her? I said to David. She was so subtle about it. Dad. She never said you were having problems directly. She would just mention things casually. Like she was worried but didn't want to make a big deal about it. Over time, it started to seem like there was a pattern. I thought back over the past year, trying to remember interactions with both of them. Had I noticed Amanda paying unusual attention to my words and actions? Had there been signs I had missed the photographs? I said suddenly. "When did you start following me?" Amanda shifted uncomfortably. "About 6 months ago. The lawyer said they would need documentation if we were going to challenge your competency." "Challenge my competency?" I repeated. "You were planning to have me declared mentally unfit." "No," David said quickly. "That's not what we discussed." "That's exactly what we discussed," Amanda snapped, turning to face her husband. "David, stop pretending you didn't know what this was about. We talked about setting up a guardianship, about making sure your father was protected from making bad financial decisions." David's face went white. "I thought we were talking about helping him manage things, not taking away his rights." "They're the same thing," Amanda said. "A guardianship would have protected him while making sure the money was used responsibly." "Responsibly?" I said. "You mean to pay off your debts? The debts were destroying us." Amanda said, her voice rising again. "Do you have any idea what it's like to lose everything? To have creditors calling you every day to know that you're going to lose your house, your car, everything you've worked for? Do you have any idea what it's like to discover that your own family has been plotting against you? I shot back to learn that the people you trusted most in the world were planning to have you declared incompetent so they could steal your money." "We weren't going to steal anything," David protested weakly. "The guardianship would have provided for you." "David," I said, my voice gentler now, because I could see he was finally understanding what had really been planned. "The guardianship Amanda and the lawyers designed would have given me $45, 000 a year to live on, while the rest of Martha's estate paid off. Your debts? After that money was gone. What then?" He stared at me, the full implications finally sinking in. There wouldn't have been anything left. "Nothing," I confirmed. "Your mother worked alongside me for 47 years. Saved every penny we could, invested carefully, and built an estate that would have allowed me to live comfortably for the rest of my life. Your wife's plan would have wiped it out in less than 10 years. Amanda stood up suddenly, her face flushed with anger. "This is all easy for you to judge. John, you've never been in serious debt. You've never faced losing everything. You don't know what desperation feels like." "You're right," I said. "I don't know what it feels like to be in your situation, but I know what it feels like to be betrayed by people I love. And I know what it feels like to discover that someone I welcomed into my family was willing to destroy me, to save herself." "I wasn't trying to destroy you," Amanda said. "I was trying to save my marriage, my family, my life, at the cost of mine," I replied. The words hung in the air between us. For the first time since this nightmare began, I saw genuine recognition in Amanda's eyes. She finally understood what she had done, what she had been willing to do. David stood up and walked to the window, staring out at the garden Martha and I had planted together 25 years ago. "What happens to us now, Dad? To our family?" It was the question I had been dreading, because the truth was, I didn't know if we could come back from this. Trust, once broken so completely, might be impossible to repair. "The lawyers will face criminal charges," I said. "Frank has provided enough evidence to prove they were involved in document forgery and fraud." "And Amanda?" David asked without turning around. I looked at my daughter-in-law, this woman who had seemed so perfect when David first brought her home. "That depends on what she does next." "What do you mean?" Amanda asked. "Detective Williams told me that if you cooperate fully with the investigation, if you testify against the lawyers and help expose how this scheme worked, the district attorney might be willing to consider a plea agreement. And if I don't, then you'll face the full consequences of fraud, forgery, and conspiracy charges. Frank's evidence is thorough enough to convict you without your cooperation." Amanda sank back down onto the couch. What kind of plea agreement, I don't know. I admitted. That would be between you, your lawyer, and the district attorney. But, Amanda, you need to understand something. Even if you avoid prison, even if you get probation or community service, this doesn't go away. You tried to steal from me. You manipulated my son into doubting me. You used my wife's illness to further your scheme. I know, she whispered. Do you, I asked, because 5 minutes ago you were still defending what you did? You were still acting like I didn't deserve the money. Martha left me. Amanda looked up at me with something that might have been genuine remorse. I was wrong. I can see that now. I let desperation turn me into someone I don't recognize. Someone willing to destroy an innocent person to get what I wanted. Yes, I said. It was such a small word, but it carried the weight of everything that had happened. Finally, an admission without excuses or justifications. Michael turned back from the window. Dad, is there any way, is there any possibility that we can fix this? That our family can survive this? I looked at my son, this man I had raised to be honest and kind, who had been manipulated into participating in his own father's betrayal. Then I looked at Amanda, who had orchestrated it all. I don't know, I said honestly, but I know what has to happen first. They both waited for me to continue. Amanda has to face the consequences of what she's done. She has to cooperate with the police, testify against the lawyers, and accept whatever punishment the court decides is appropriate. And, David, you have to decide whether you can stay married to someone who is willing to do this to your father. David's face crumpled. Dad, she's my wife. I love her. I know you do, I said gently, but love isn't always enough. Trust is the foundation of any relationship. And she didn't just betray me. She manipulated you, lied to you, used your love for me against both of us. I can change, Amanda said desperately. I can be better. I can earn back your trust. Can you? I asked, because this wasn't a moment of weakness. Amanda, this was months of planning, months of lies, months of watching me go about my daily life while plotting to destroy it. This was who you chose to be. The room fell silent again. Outside, I could hear the neighbor's dog barking and children playing in the street. The normal sounds of life continuing while my world had been turned upside down. What do you want from us? David asked, finally. I want you to choose, I said. Both of you, choose who you want to be going forward. Choose whether you want to be people who can live with the consequence of your actions, or people who keep making excuses for them. It wasn't the answer they wanted, but it was the only one I had, because the truth was, I couldn't make this decision for them. I couldn't force David to leave his wife, and I couldn't force Amanda to become a different person. All I could do was decide what I was willing to accept in my own life. And I was no longer willing to accept being betrayed by people who claimed to love me. 8 months later, I sat in my garden on a crisp May morning, watching the roses bloom on the bushes Martha and I had planted for our 20th wedding anniversary. The seasons had a way of putting things in perspective. What seemed permanent and unchangeable in winter could be transformed completely by spring. Amanda had taken the plea agreement, 2 years of probation, 400 hours of community service, and full restitution of the legal fees that had been paid to Peterson. Walsh and Associates. The lawyers had received prison sentences. Walsh got 3 years. His associates got 18 months each. Frank had been key to their convictions. His detailed documentation and brave testimony, ensuring they faced the full consequences of their actions. But the legal resolution was only part of the story. The real healing had taken much longer and was still ongoing. David had moved out of the house he shared with Amanda. 6 weeks after our confrontation in my living room, he was living in a small apartment downtown now, trying to figure out who he was, without the weight of her manipulation influencing his every decision. I keep second-guessing everything he had told me during one of our weekly coffee meetings. Every memory, every conversation, every decision I made over the past few years. How much of it was really me, and how much was her telling me what to think? It was a question I understood all too well. I had spent months doing the same thing, replaying conversations and interactions, trying to separate truth from the carefully crafted lies that had been woven into my daily life. The divorce proceedings were almost complete. David had discovered even more deception as lawyers went through their finances. Credit cards opened in his name without his knowledge. Loans taken out against his business. Spending that Amanda had hidden from him for years. The financial situation was worse than either of us had realized. I had offered to help with the debts, but David had refused. "Dad, I can't take your money to clean up the mess my wife made," he had said. "I need to figure this out on my own. The right way?" This time, it was a decision I respected, even though it pained me to watch him struggle. He had sold the house in Westfield, was driving a 10-year-old Toyota instead of his BMW, and was working 14-hour days to rebuild his consulting business from the ground up. But there was something different about him now, a sense of purpose and integrity that reminded me of the man I had raised him to be. Frank had become an unexpected fixture in my life. I had hired him as a part-time assistant for my small real estate investments, and he was renting the apartment above my garage. Watching him transform from a desperate man living out of his car to someone with stability and purpose had been one of the few bright spots in this difficult time. "Mr. Peterson," he called out as he walked across the lawn, carrying a tray with 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you might like some company this morning." I smiled as he settled into the chair beside me. "Thank you, Frank. How are you feeling about the business?" Frank had recently started his own document security consulting firm, helping law offices implement better oversight procedures to prevent the kind of fraud we had exposed. It was ironic. Just as that his experience being fired for knowing too much had become the foundation for his new career. "Business is good," he said thoughtfully. "Turns out a lot of firms want to make sure they don't end up like Peterson. Walsh and Associates." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, both of us processing the long journey that had brought us to this moment. "Have you heard from Amanda lately?" I asked. Frank nodded. "She comes to the community center sometimes, when I'm there teaching document literacy classes. She doesn't say much, but she works hard. I think she's finally starting to understand what real consequences look like." I wasn't sure how I felt about that. Part of me wanted Amanda to suffer, to truly comprehend the harm she had caused. But a larger part of me just wanted her to become a better person, someone who would never again be capable of the cruelty she had shown me. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from David. "Coffee later. I have some news." I showed the message to Frank, who raised an eyebrow. "Think it's good news or bad news?" With David these days, it could be either, I replied. That afternoon, David arrived at my house looking better than he had in months. He had gained back some of the weight he had lost during the stress of the divorce, and there was color in his cheeks again. "You look good," I told him as we settled in the kitchen with our coffee. "I feel good, Dad. Really good. For the first time in years. I feel like I'm living my own life instead of managing someone else's crisis." He pulled out his phone and showed me a picture of a small storefront with Peterson Consulting Solutions painted on the window. I signed the lease yesterday. My own office. My own business built the right way this time. Pride swelled in my chest. "Your mother would be so proud of you." "I hope so," David said. "I've been thinking about her a lot lately. About the values she tried to teach me. The kind of man she wanted me to become. I lost sight of that for a while. We all did," I said gently. But we found our way back. David reached across the table and took my hand. "Dad, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." I squeezed his hand. Always. Can you ever forgive me? Really forgive me. Not just say the words because you love me, but actually let go of what happened. It was a question I had been asking myself for months. Could I truly forgive my son for doubting me, for being manipulated into participating in a scheme that could have destroyed my life, David? I said carefully, forgiveness isn't something that happens all at once. It's a choice I make every day. Some days it's easier than others. His eyes filled with tears. I understand. But yeah, I continued, I can forgive you. I have forgiven you because I can see that you were a victim too. Amanda used your love for me against both of us. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, both of us processing the long journey that had brought us to this moment. What about Amanda? David asked, finally. What about her? Do you think you'll ever be able to forgive her? I considered the question carefully. I don't know what she did. Was calculated, deliberate, cruel. She didn't just make a mistake or let desperation cloud her judgment for a moment. She spent months planning to destroy me. She says she's changed. Maybe she has. People can change. David. But forgiveness isn't about whether someone has changed. It's about whether I'm willing to carry the burden of anger and resentment. And I've decided I'm not. So you have forgiven her. I've let go of the anger. I clarified that's not the same as forgiveness. And it's certainly not the same as trust. Amanda will never be welcome in my life again. But I refuse to let her steal any more of my peace. David nodded thoughtfully as he prepared to leave. I walked him to the door. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. It was the kind of sunset Martha and I used to watch together from our back porch, her hand in mine as we talked about our dreams. For the future, Dad, David said as he hugged me goodbye. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for finding your way back, I replied. After he left, I walked through my house. This home Martha and I had built together over 4 decades of marriage. The rooms were quiet but not lonely. I had thought that losing Martha would mean facing the rest of my life alone. But I had discovered something important over these past months. I wasn't alone. I had people in my life who genuinely cared about me. Frank, whose loyalty and courage had saved me from a terrible fate. David, who was working every day to become the man he was meant to be. Detective Williams, who still called to check on me. The staff at the community center where Amanda was doing her service, who had become friends after I started volunteering there myself. I had a life full of purpose and meaning. I was teaching financial literacy classes at the senior center, helping Frank expand his consulting business, and working with Detective Williams's department to help other elderly people recognize and avoid financial exploitation schemes. Most importantly, I had reclaimed my own story. For months, Amanda had been writing a narrative where I was a confused, incompetent old man who couldn't be trusted with his own life. But that was never true. I was a strong, capable man who had survived 47 years of marriage, raised a son, built a life, and faced down people who tried to destroy me. That evening, as I sat on the back porch with a cup of tea, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Complete peace. Not the peace of having everything I wanted, but the peace of knowing exactly who I was and what I was worth. Martha's love lived on in the security she had provided for me, and the values she had taught our son in the beautiful life we had built together. Amanda's scheme had failed, not just because Frank had exposed it, but because the foundation Martha and I had built was stronger than the lies Amanda had tried to construct on top of it. I was 75 years old, and I was just beginning the best chapter of my life. The thought would have seemed impossible 8 months ago, but now it felt like the most natural thing in the world. I was free. Trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, family betrayal cuts. Deepest, but truth and integrity always prevail. Sometimes strangers show more loyalty than blood. Relatives. The greatest inheritance isn't money. It's maintaining your dignity and moral compass when others lose theirs. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more real-life stories about overcoming family, betrayal, and protecting yourself from those who would take advantage of your trust. Story 2, I remarked. I am so excited for the New Year's party that I paid for. You're actually staying at home. Your brother is moving into your flat with his children. Mom grinned. All right. I changed my address, reversed the charges, and when he arrived with boxes, there was a folder with his name on it and a for sale sign on the yard. As I placed the invitation and event schedule on the kitchen table, I said, I am so excited for the New Year's party. DJ Seafood catering till 3 in the morning. A view from the roof. It will be different this year. Mom didn't even give me a glance. On the counter, she was chopping cheese. As calm as ever. I wanted to discuss that with you. She added, You're not leaving. I went cold. What? She moved the cheese into a container and remarked, We're going to the party. Your dad, Ryan, and I. I gazed. You're referring to the party I bought, without even glancing up from his newspaper. Dad added from the couch. Yes. In theory. But Ryan truly needs this. Are you aware of his experiences? My brother was carrying his youngest in the doorway as I turned to face him. He didn't appear at all uneasy. It's been a nightmare with Kelly. Oh, he said, as if that clarified anything. The children never stop. It has been weeks since I had a vacation. You're replacing me. Then I inquired. I used the money I made to pay for the celebration. Mom responded, You'll be doing something more important. You and the children will remain at home. Ryan needs some time off. Are you serious? We just need your assistance. She stated. No. I said, You're not inquiring. You made up your mind already. Ryan gave a shrug. Man, hurry up. It's only one evening. The children had a great time with you. Once? I chuckled. They do. Of course. The only person who genuinely looks after them is myself. Dad warned you to watch your tone. You're still avoiding me. Mon continued. Oh, and one more thing. Ryan will be residing with you for some time. What? She said that after the divorce, he has been unable to pay his rent. As if it were clear, he and the lads will move into your flat. Just till the situation settles down, I gazed at her, without asking. You chose to relocate him and his children into my home. Do you live alone, flatly? Dad said, There's space? I had a look around. Does Mom continue to shop? Dad continues to read. Ryan is now using the television to browse the stations, as if he were a resident. Before I even entered, they had already made up their minds. All right, silently. I said, Go enjoy yourself. Mom gave me a quick look. Really, I remarked as I turned to go to my room. I closed the door behind myself. They assumed I was pouting. No, I wasn't. I was considering ways to ensure that they would never again take advantage of me in this manner. That evening, I returned to my flat and sat there in the dark. That much was clear. They had already decided. It was no longer my party. Apparently, neither my money nor my apartment belonged to me anymore. However, this wasn't novel. For months, this had been developing. Following the divorce, Ryan returned to live with our parents. He began by saying it was only temporary, until I find somewhere else. That was 5 months ago. He informed me. Since then, the topic of difficulty has come up every other conversation. The way Kelly abandoned him, how the mounting legal expenditures were being handled, how challenging being a single father was. I paid attention. I was helpful. I even handed him cash. Little things at beginning. Can you cover the kids' school shoes this month? Do you mind grabbing diapers while you're out? Hey, man, can I borrow 100 to fix the stroller? And of course, I always said yes. I told myself it was short term. I told myself I was doing the right thing. But then the assets got bigger. One week it was $300, just to catch up on a bill. The next step was food. Then petrol money. Then Christmas presents for the kids. Because Kelly's being tough. I didn't keep count at first. I should have. But by mid-December, I'd already sent over $1. Ling, ling, ling. And not once did he say thank you. Hey, Ryan remarked one day while we were in the vehicle. Are you still living alone? Yes, I said slowly. Good. That second room is at your apartment. Correct, although I agreed. There was something in his tone that made my stomach turn. He smiled. If I moved in with you, it would be much simpler. You don't even use that room. I don't intend to offend. It simply sits there. Are you serious? Would it make sense? I already feel as though I will always be staying at my mom's house. It's becoming strange. You have room. No girlfriend. No children. I didn't respond. Mom called later that night. We have been considering. She mentioned that having Ryan and the boys remain with you after New Year's would be really beneficial. What, it's temporary? She said hastily. Only until he works it out. Your home is tranquil, and he needs a new beginning. It will benefit the guys. Have you discussed this with Ryan? All of us did. That was very typical. She said. He's thrilled. The children adore you. He adds, that's fantastic, since I haven't agreed to anything. I mumbled. She hesitated a moment. Next. This isn't about you. He's having trouble. I had heard that sentence all year. It was every time I attempted to push back, avoid becoming self-centered. It was every dollar I donated. You have no children. You can afford it? Every holiday. Every favor. Babysitting every weekend. It was only a small amount of assistance. They referred to it as family. However, I was beginning to see what it was. One way, and I was the one who gave all the time. Ryan emailed me a photo of bunk beds the next morning. Do you think this arrangement would work in the spare space? No. Can we have a conversation? No. Do you think this is acceptable? Only a guess. I spent a lot of time staring at my phone. After that, I accessed my banking app and examined the transfers. Money. Gift cards. Birthday presents. Pizza evenings. School excursions. And utilities. I just made this one payment. I mentally added it up. I tightened my jaw. Since August. Over $2. Zero. Zero has been lost. He now wants my privacy as well. Something solid sank into my chest. Nobody ever inquired about my well-being. What I was giving up was of no concern to anyone. All they wanted was more. That night, I didn't get any sleep. I was lying in bed, wide open eyes. Everything I should have said was flying through my head. All the things I should have done sooner. Until around 3 in the morning, I gave up on my thoughts. I was the first to begin. I took out my laptop and canceled all of the reservations. The venue on the roof, the seafood catering and the DJ, the order for champagne. After that, I phoned my bank and canceled all of the charges I had made for the party on New Year's Eve. Every cancellation was like a rope being cut. I then clicked on a different page and put my condo up for sale. The 2nd of January arrived. I felt sharper than ever. Even though the sky was dismal and the air was frigid, I had already relocated across town to a short-term apartment. Just a clear, peaceful mind. Nothing fancy. All I did was pack 2 bags and leave the rest behind. No texts. No calls. Simply disappeared. But not before abandoning something. There was a huge, hefty folder with Ryan Grant scrawled across the top in red marker. A large envelope fastened to the front door, and a bright red and white for sale sign hammered deep into the frozen turf in the front yard of my previous residence. 3:27 p.m. My phone sprang to life. Ryan is en route. Children are thrilled. Packed. Everything we owned. I didn't respond. A few blocks away, I sat in a cafe, observing everything through a live security feed that I had set up a week prior, just in case. He arrived in the minivan 15 minutes later, toys in a plastic storage bin in the truck, kids in the back seat boxes, as if he had just arrived at Disneyland. He parked, got out, stretched, and grinned. Then he stopped. The sign caught his attention. He gazed at the bold letters for sale as he stood there. The grin vanished. He ascended the stairs. The door remained closed. Someone had changed the lock. He then noticed the folder. After tearing it off the door, he opened it and began looking through its contents. The show really started at that point. Within the folder, page 1 Ampere printed screen grab of the venue reservation cancellation. Email confirmation on page 2 that the catering had been reimbursed included the line that the client had asked for a complete reversal because of fraudulent family interference. Page 3. A spreadsheet showing all of the money I had given Ryan for groceries, rent, school fees, and children's clothing during the previous 12 months. At the bottom, it was totaled, dated, and itemized. $3, $8.45. T. Not compensated, not acknowledged, not valued. Page 4. A letter addressed to him. Ryan, you assumed too much for too long. You thought I'd always say yes. You thought I had nothing better to do than sacrifice my time, money, and life for your mess. You were wrong. This is not your home. This is not your backup plan. This is not your fresh start. The only thing waiting for you here is the realization that the free ride is over. Happy New Year. Page 5. A printed photo. A screenshot from his call with a friend where he joked, "My brother's a failure, but he owes Mom, so it works out." Page 6. Copy of the realtor agreement. Page 7. Notice of listing. Page 8. Change of address. Confirmation. Paganina. Utility transfer form. Page 10. Blank eviction form. Just for show. He stood there, flipping through every page, his face slowly turning red. Then white. "Daddy? Can we go? Iron!" one of his sons shouted from the back seat. He didn't answer. He just stood there holding the folder like it had just detonated in his hands. Minutes later, Mom and Dad pulled up. They stepped out of the car, clearly expecting to help Ryan move in. Mom stopped in her tracks when she saw the sign. "Is this a joke?" she asked. Ryan handed her the folder silent. She flipped through a few pages. Her face dropped as she got to the spreadsheet. Then the letter. Then the screenshot of his failure comment that said nothing. He just sighed. Deep and heavy. Mom turned to Ryan. A voice sharp. "Did you really say that?" "It was a joke." Ryan muttered. Dad looked at the house. Then the sign. Then the kids still waiting in the car. "He's gone," he said quietly. Mom's phone buzzed. She opened it. It was a group message from me. "Send it. All 3 of them. Don't contact me. Not about the apartment. Not about babysitting. Not about money. You made your choice. I've made mine. I'm done." That night, I didn't go to a party. I didn't open champagne. I didn't count down. I didn't celebrate the way I imagined I would, but I did something better. I sat on the floor of my new place. Keep quiet. Alone. I made a frozen pizza, watched a ridiculous action movie, and slept like a rock. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't know anyone, anything, and no one was coming through my door with boxes ever again. For the first 24 hours, it was quiet. I kept my phone off, didn't check email, didn't open social media. I thought maybe they received the message. Maybe the folder spoke enough. But of course not. My quiet was shattered on the evening of the 3rd of January. I saw the missed calls while I was on my way back from the grocery store. Ryan gave Mom 6. Dad gave her 2. And an unidentified number gave her 1. I switched the phone off once more. What they had to say was not anything I wanted to read. I was aware beforehand. They arrived in person that evening. The knock was the first. I instantly regretted it as I unlocked the door of my new rental apartment. Mom was the one. Her eyes were bloodshot. Her eyeliner was smudged, and her coat button was off, giving the impression that she had hurriedly dressed. Ryan was standing with his arms folded behind her, while Dad was silently hovering a few steps back. "We must speak," she said. "No, we don't." After responding, I began to shut the door. She used her hand to push back. "You caught us off guard." "No," I responded coolly. "I took precautions. There is a distinction. Your family was humiliated by you." She lost her temper. That wasn't fair to Ryan. I chuckled. Oh, he was not worthy of receiving a written list of all the things I had done for him. For once, he didn't deserve to be honest. Ryan took a step forward. He spoke louder. "You caught me off guard. You had the opportunity to speak to me like a man." "You mean that you called me a failure when you spoke to your friend on the phone, who was Mom?" I said that. He flushed. "It was a joke. There was a pattern." I fired back. "I was used by you for a year, most likely longer. At last." I declined. "You're not fond of that." That was the first to speak. "You didn't have to exaggerate anything. The folder, the flat, and the party. I told you that the folder was the only thing that got your attention. I was about to destroy the bridge before you stopped." Mom gave me the tense, irate smile she had just about to give me. "I feel guilty. Your family is us. I'm not your servant." "Either." I lost my temper. "You have no right to come here and act as though I have to give you an explanation." "I don't." She took a long breath and moved away from me, even though it seemed like she was about to hit me. "This is something you'll regret. You'll realize how self-centered you were when you look back." "No," I responded, returning inside. "When you look back, you'll see that the only thing that kept this mess together was you." For the following few days, I shut the door. I anticipated more, but they only appeared in various forms: texts, emails, guilt trips, and a few others. All we want to discuss is voicemails. Ryan even attempted to use a card to invite the children over. "Uncle, you are missed." I didn't respond. Instead, I began therapy. I started taking care of my money. I disconnected my old credit card, created a second account, and changed all of the passwords. I needed time. I informed my employer, without asking any questions. She granted me a week off, and I did nothing for anyone else, for a change. The twist then appeared. I received a call from an unknown number a week after the explosion. I wouldn't normally answer, but I felt compelled to do so. "Hi there," a pause, followed by a quiet voice. "Is this Michael indeed?" "Karen is my name." My name is Sister Kelly." I felt sick to my stomach. "Kelly, Ryan's former partner, the children's mother," she said softly. "I hope this isn't a bad time. I wanted to express my gratitude. For what purpose? For all that you did for Kelly and those children, even for Ryan, despite the fact that he never valued it. I was at a loss for words. She went on. Kelly filled me in on everything. The party, the folder, the money, and the moving plants. She claimed that Ryan did all of that behind her back and that she never wanted them to live with you. I went cold. What she didn't know until the boys returned, sobbing, and told her they were no longer allowed to visit Uncle Michael's. She was enraged, claimed he had no authority. She wanted me to apologize for everything to you. Karen hesitated as I sat there silently, holding the phone. Ryan attempted to obtain a loan in your name. I'm not sure if you are aware of this. My blood is icy. What Kelly located the documents. He made use of your information. She halted it, threatened to contact law enforcement. He gave in. However, it's probably a good idea to check your credit report. I remained silent. Karen went on, her voice trembling slightly. Sincerely, you should be done with them, and I know you are. However, I just wanted to express my gratitude for not turning into one of them. The line then stopped working. I spent a lot of time sitting. After that, I grabbed my credit report from my laptop, and sure enough, there it was. A hard inquiry from a loan company I'd never contacted. He tried. He actually tried. And that folder, it saved me from something much worse. They thought I was dramatic, overreacting, cruel. But the truth, I got out just in time. I always thought cutting someone off would feel like violence, like smashing a door, like shouting, like burning a bridge and watching the flames dance in the dark. But the truth, it felt like silence, big, profound, unneeded quiet. It's been a month now since I closed the door on them. My family, the celebration, the guilt, the never-endless demands. I wake up in a different apartment. I walk different streets. I sip coffee alone, and no one asks me to pick up diapers on the way back. No one texts me about a speedy transfer. Just once. It's quiet, but not empty. The silence seems liberating for the first time in years. Really. I started going to therapy. I said my story aloud, starting to finish. The point where everything was paid for by me. The portion when I was dubbed a failure behind my back by my brother. The portion when my parents said that since I had no obligations, I didn't need anything. Something my therapist asked me struck me like a freight train. What would happen if you were no longer of use? I was aware of the solution. I was dropped. They had it already. For as soon as I stopped making payments, I stopped bending. I became irrelevant. I wasn't loved by them. I did something for them that they adored. And something deep within of me was destroyed by that understanding. However, it created room when it broke. Make room for me. Now my credit is locked. I have different bank accounts. Regarding the attempted loan scam, I anonymously reported it. I received another contact from Kelly, asking whether I wanted to file charges. No, I told her. I'm not seeking retribution. Distance is what I seek. That's all. Since then, Ryan has not attempted to contact me. Dad and Mom haven't. They gave me a group SMS as their final communication. This family believes that you are dead. It didn't hurt, even though it should have. What had always been true seemed to be said out for the first time. Then an unforeseen event occurred. I received an email from Kelly, Ryan's ex-wife. A week ago. Subject line, "Thank you." She informed me that she had relocated out of state with the boys and had applied for full custody. That she discovered a better life, a better career, and a better school. She composed, "I've always assumed you're the background man, the silent one. However, I now see that you were the only one who was steady." While the rest of us took advantage of you, you kept everything together. I regret not speaking out sooner. You are missed by the lads. I'll never say anything negative about you to them. They would love to hear from you if you ever wish to write. When I read that, I started crying. For the first time, someone truly noticed me and stated it. Not because I wanted to return to their life. You're not self-centered. Don't be too theatrical. Not you. I was fair. Thank you. That was more than my own parents ever gave me. I have no regrets about what I did. The unit is being sold. The best choice I've ever made. Severing them. Long late. That folder, to be honest, that was worthy of a Pulitzer. What? In a moment. I do it all over again. They believed they had broken me. They believed I had returned in a shambles. I'd feel bad about it, that I would feel isolated. Here's the reality. Though I don't feel isolated, I feel fresh. I feel whole. This is something I've never experienced before. They can never steal anything I possess. If you're reading this, you may be thinking that your family only calls when they're in need. Have you ever been living someone else's life and missed your own? If assisting becomes a way of life you never consented to? I have something I would like you to know. You can get out now. You have the right to refuse. You are free to leave. Pack up and never return. You can leave after placing the folder on the door. You share their blood, but you don't show them your life. They are unknown to you. Your lack of response. Everything you've been giving away is something you owe yourself. And grin when people accuse you of being selfish, because when they say that, it indicates that you have finally become your own person and are no longer their property.